Hey flower friends, welcome back to another episode of the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I'm really happy to be here with you guys because y'all, I hope nobody is outside in this frigid weather. I just came in a little while ago and it is cold out there. I'm located in southeastern Virginia and we are experiencing lows that we haven't seen in a long time. I turned the TV off after I heard this. I heard the local weatherman say that it's going to feel like 0 tonight in southeastern Virginia. That is much colder than we're used to. So my friends, grab a warm beverage and I hope maybe you're comfy and snuggled down. I am sitting in front of the fire. And so friends, before I jump into this casual narrative podcast that I was really feeling led to talk about today, I want to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by thegardenersworkshop.com. That is home base to everything that we do. It's jam-packed over there, y'all, from lots of resources you can connect with, videos, blogs. You can connect with our sister podcast, which is Seed Talk with Lisa and Lane. We have a fully stocked online garden shop of the same tools, seeds, and supplies, as well as my books, same stuff that I use. And we have a full line of online courses in our online course library, just sitting waiting for you to partake in. And so the need arises, you need stuff or you need guidance. We hope that you'll consider visiting thegardenersworkshop.com. And don't forget, friends, I do live gardening shows demonstrating and sharing what we're doing here on the farm 2 or 3 times a week. And you can connect with that by downloading our phone app. Go to your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop. We have 2 apps, Shop app and the Learn app. The Shop app is where the live show happens. It's free, y'all. Join me for some fun, and I'm sure that Jesse will add the link to the app to get to the shows in the show notes. So, my friends, this is a casual podcast, which will definitely be familiar to those that have been listening to me since the beginning of this podcast several years ago. So, friends, it's me, you, a cup of Joe, for a listen on what drives me. So I've called this episode, It's the Pull, Not the Push. And you'll understand what that all means here in just a moment. I was led to talk about this because I am just frequently asked, how do you do it all? You know, what keeps me getting up and doing it over and over again? So I want to share that kind of in a nutshell, and then I'm going to share what my journey has been to get here. So it's not for me, and I want to say this is all about me. This is not the right way or the wrong way or the way you should do it necessarily. This is just how it has unfolded for me. It's not, for me, not a question of how do I keep going? It's that, in fact, my friends, I am pulled to do what I am doing. You know, all the content that I create, all the equipping of people, all the answering of the same questions thousands of times. It really doesn't seem like to me that I'm doing so much at all, because the more that I do it, the more I actually see that there are still so many people that are still in the gardening darkness, that I want to do this to help more will never be done. And this whole process just brings such professional and personal joy to me, and it does also to the TGW team. That is the driving force. We feel like this important work that we have embarked on will never be done. And so how did all this come about, right? How did I get here? It all really started as a struggling kid in school. I was literally just rolled from one grade to another, pushed through, mover on. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I started to realize, learn, and understand that I wasn't just a dummy, that I was, in fact, physically built different than other people, and that I had some really special qualities that other people, which I call normal people, just don't have. And so I have dyslexia, and there's more talk about dyslexia this day than there was ever before, and just such a thankfulness for the people that are doing that. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Jamie Oliver. He is an English chef cook who is just so incredibly worldwide known now. Well, he too is dyslexic. He has written children's books about it. He's made a documentary over in England, and I've always been a follower of Jamie. You know, he was the person you may have seen years ago that was really on some kind of tour here in the U.S. talking about school lunches and how crummy they were for kids and trying to get real food back into school, which he is still on that journey and making incredible progress. That's how I found out about him years ago. Then he brings in that he's dyslexic and some things that he was doing about that. And I've just been a big follower of his journey and recommend it to anybody that has dyslexia or has dyslexic kids. The message that I believe that children need to hear is that nobody understands you because you are so dadgum special. And, you know, that just empowers kids instead of the journey that I took. So let's get back to that. So I didn't know I was a dyslexic. I was never diagnosed as a child, you know, and finding out as an adult, oh, wow, maybe it's not that I'm just different and a dummy. I am different. And that journey really began for me when I went to work for the veterinarian that I worked for close to 20 years. I worked my way up to the lead receptionist and then to the practice manager. And I started writing him notes. You know, people would call in and I'd have to write words like diarrhea. I can spell that now, but I didn't used to be able to. I would have to write him notes. And finally, one day in the privacy of nobody else being around, he said, "You cannot spell, and I want to help you." And he said, "I'm going to red pen your notes and pass them back to you." And that was the beginning of my journey of realizing that I had a problem that I had not recognized until that time. And that really just led me down such a journey that was so embarrassing. When he did that, I was so embarrassed, but I am so grateful that somebody cared enough about me to actually say, "Hey, wait a minute, did you realize?" And he is where I really learned my gift of gab, of being able to talk to people in a kinder, softer way that has a really strong meaning behind it, perhaps. So I'm grateful that he took the time to point that out to me. So let's just fast forward down this journey. And then I discovered gardening. I was beginning to discover it, and then came Stevie. And so what I have definitely come to believe through this journey is that I have a strong belief that all people have a given characteristic of being drawn to gardening. I mean, y'all, it's a miracle. The whole process, starting from seed and the whole process, it is the most affirming thing that you can do with your hands. I mean, it's just a natural being a part of starting and growing seeds and plants is just so amazing. And it does chemical things to you, to your body. That's what tells me that we all have it. We are all God-given that opportunity. So we all have that. It's in our DNA, okay? No matter where you are in life, I'm sure there'll be somebody that'll point out to me that there's somebody that doesn't have it, but I'm going with that we're all born with it. Then I got plugged in to Steve Ziegler. You know, we met, fell in love, and this place that he came with, that Garden and Dowry that I speak of so much, it was a result of just basic farming and gardening for so many decades, which just opened the pathway for me to be able to garden. It made it really simple and really clear on what I needed to do, and that really opened my eyes, right? Which is another dyslexic gift, y'all. It's like we don't need all the details. Just give us the bottom line and we will run with it. And that's exactly what this place was to me for gardening. I'd already dabbled a little in gardening, met Stevie. He was a big gardener, kind of just fell right in here, and it all just, it just pulled the drapes back, right? That it wasn't really complicated at all. You just had to start with some basic building blocks, and that's what I did. And I became really good at that simple first level of gardening. And so we're hitting the fast forward button on a lot of this, y'all. So then we fast forward, and then I stumble upon an article about flower farming. Holy cow, y'all. You can actually have a career growing stuff. So here I was, that person that had been pursuing gardening, developing that, and I just was stumbling along, and I was having success because I was following those simple foundation rules. And of course, I didn't have the interference back then, y'all, of social media. I didn't have 8 million opportunities. I was really just having to stick in my own little world. And that was the best thing to ever happen to me. Then I discovered flower farming. And another dyslexic gift is that we are cliff jumpers. We don't really consider consequences, which is not always a good thing. But in the entrepreneurial world, it is quite a gift to have. So I read about flower farming and thought, I'm going to do that. I dove in. I dove right into the deep end, y'all. And because of my strong foundation of basics, I was able to hit a home run right out of the gate. I went straight to the simple instructions and followed them. And I could go such down a hole on that, y'all. That is the secret to everything, right? Just stick to what the person in front of you that's doing what you want to do did, and you can do it. And that's what I did. So hitting the fast forward button again. So 2 or 3 years down the road, I am growing and selling cut flowers. I'm showing up at the farmer's market, which was a big successful farmer's market, every week with 20, 30 buckets of beautiful, blemish-free, gorgeous cut flowers. But here's the key. I did it week after week after week. And it didn't take long for me to get noticed, not only by customers, but for the requests to start coming in. Do you want to guess what those requests were? People wanted to know, how in the world was I doing that? Right? So to my recollection, the first request actually came from the James City County / Williamsburg Master Gardener Group. And that happened because they also had a booth at the farmer's market, like a Q&A booth. People could ask them questions. And apparently they were watching me because they were one of the first ones to ask me to come and speak about what it was I was doing at their graduation ceremony. You know, when you take the Master Gardener program, you then graduate and become a Master Gardener after you fulfill your volunteer hours. Well, I was their so chosen speaker. Y'all, I was so nervous because first off, they were a bunch of Master Gardeners. I felt like, they were so much smarter than I was. Because, here I'm still dragging around the residual from my childhood experience that I was a dummy and that I just didn't know, and I'm an overachiever because I keep trying, because I just don't know what I'm doing, right? I mean, that whole stigma, I'm still dragging that 20-foot tail around with me. So I was really intimidated, but being the dyslexic I was, I said, sure, I'll do it. Which is famous Lisa remark, sure, we can do that, before I ever consider how, when, what, and how is that going to work, right? So that success of that talk kind of began the discovery of my strongest gift, I believe, of communicating the simplicity of this thing that I'm pulled to do, and that's growing flowers. Because I love doing it, and I found those simplistic steps that what became really raw and open after that speaking was that my strongest gift is empowering other people to do it. particularly the people that were just like me, that little kid that couldn't do anything, showing that here's the door you need to walk through, right? And I became so eager to share all that. It just really started to become a bigger part of my life. So we're hitting the fast forward button again. So let's just jump straight through all of my years of growing and selling, going through high production, because I had to go to high production to be able to make this a business, to get more help, to help me do what I was doing. You have to create more income because you have to pay the people and buy all the stuff you need, right? And pay yourself. All of that's like a vicious circle. So I went on, during that time, I became a national speaker, traveled all over the country teaching people basically what I was doing, right? Became a speaker, created all these different talks, and then I got the opportunity to write a book. Dyslexic, can't spell, no grammar. I'm sure y'all know this from listening to me talk. I use the wrong words sometimes. I don't pronounce words correctly because I don't know phonics. I can't sound out words. Anyway, so I got this opportunity to write a book, and that is truly thanks to lifelong family, friend of Stevie's family, Susan Yoder Ackerman, who became my fast friend through church, who was a writer, French teacher, educator, and all it took was her to say, you write it, I'll fix it, and we'll send it to your publisher then. That gave me the confidence to spill my beans, y'all. Just having one person reach out and say, you have something to say, and I want to help you get it out and onto paper. And that's what really began it. So, wrote my first book, Cool Flowers, and then that ball just kept rolling. And Susan has been my personal editor. Even though I have editors at publishers, Susan and Jesse both fiddle, as they say, with my words, sometimes rearranging and restructuring before it goes to my publisher editors, right? That then sometimes do things to it, right? So wrote books and then went on to develop online courses. All of this was to start fulfilling my grandeur dream of this pull that I have to educate more and more people. Something that became really obvious to me as I started traveling and speaking. Oh my gosh, I love doing it, y'all. I hated being away from home, Stevie, being away from him and our dog, but I love speaking. But there's tunnel vision on that kind of resource because you're only available to those people during that speaking time. You know, you speak, you teach, you do a Q&A, people line up to talk to you after the speaking, and I loved all that. But after you leave that meeting or that conference, there's really no way to interact with those people. And that's what started my journey of creating all these other resources. So many different resources, y'all, from Flower Farming School online, to books, to the club, to this platform of our website, to being so active on social media. All of that was to be able to continue the journey of helping people. You know, this pull of teaching and helping other people is a result of what I experienced as that struggling kid that with no clear direction, you know. And I want to just shout out, you know, this was by no fault of anybody. I was as bazillions of other people were, a kind of a victim of the time and the era that I was born into. My parents worked with me every single night with homework. My dad who was the dyslexic in our family. You know, once you figure all that out, you look, I actually have a grocery list that my dad wrote that he kept on his refrigerator. When he passed away, that was one of the things that I took, and it's on my refrigerator. I still have it. And it's like, there is no question who the dyslexic was in our family. It was my dad. And so my dad would sit me down at his drawing board. He was not a trained architect, but he was such an amazing drawer of furniture, building boats. He would draw all that stuff. So he would sit me down at his drawing board with graph paper and have me write A in a box and then write 100 A's. He'd write B and then I'd write 100 B's. You know, all the things that they were doing were not the wrong things. They were just what they thought would help me. So I was being helped, but it just wasn't the right medicine to help me. And the school system, they didn't, teachers today, I believe, still they aren't educated on that there is such a high percentage of dyslexic kids. Pretty much every misbehaving kid in my mind in your classroom is probably dyslexic. They are probably the most gifted person, and you just don't know how to reach them yet. Y'all, it's making me think of things, and so I'm losing my train here. So I will say this, and then I'm going to move on. There is a documentary that was funded by two dyslexics that you'll probably recognize. Charles Schwab of Charles Schwab Money Funds, and also Richard Branson of Virgin Records. Both of them incredibly successful entrepreneurs, both highly dyslexic. They funded a documentary called The Big Picture. The Story of Dyslexia, I think, is the tagline. But anyway, The Big Picture, you need to watch it. Every teacher should be required to watch it. And that's the study that reveals that dyslexics are actually missing a little piece of our brain, one little connector, and that's what creates how our brain functions differently than other people's. And teachers just aren't equipped. They just aren't equipped. So anyway, so I did get help. It just wasn't the right medicine when I was getting it. So I was that student that got no clear direction. You know what it's like as an adult when I look back? It's like me trying to climb up of a mountain, dragging a boulder, and nobody gave me the right tools to do it. And just on the other side of that mountain was utopia. There was a valley full of whatever it is that you're trying to conquer, whether it's gardening or farming or reading or whatever. And so it is out there for all of us, but we just have to have the right tools to get there. So that's exactly how I feel about people that feel like I did back when I was first trying to start gardening, that I just couldn't do it. It's too hard. I don't have the right stuff. There's a whole bunch of reasons I stack up in my mind of why I can't do something. You know, that's our minds working against us, the fear factor, right? You know, whether it's growing a beautiful home garden or starting a flower farm. As I started educating people, just a handful at first, and as that spread, I started seeing more and more people that were so downtrodden that they were me. They were that kid that couldn't read or spell. And friends, you know what that did? That turned me into a hellion behavior problem. And I will just say that I was expelled from school in the 6th grade. Like, don't bring her back. My mother, of course, got me back in. I'm just saying this could be the root of so much that is the problems. And, you know, when my sister first discovered that documentary, The Big Picture, she brought it to me and we bawled watching it. And I would probably imagine there's people bawling, listen to this, that you're figuring out what your kid's problem is or what your problem potentially could be. And that there is so much help. You just haven't found the right medicine yet. And it's out there. And when I say medicine, I don't mean drugs. I mean the way that you are taught and trained and learned. So back to the point, y'all. Sorry. As a result of all of this, you know, I have this absolute pull to help people learn how to experience what I think is one of the most amazing miracles of all, and that's gardening. You know, growing stuff, starting from seed, planting out in the garden, producing beautiful flowers that take your breath and take other people's breath, or growing an awesome tomato. You know, I have this pull to do that. It's not a grind. It's not that I have to push myself to keep going. Oh, Lisa, you need to do one more live. Make a quota. That's some preset quota that I know a lot of business people have for their websites, their stores. Not me. That is not my focus at all. And I don't see anybody most people that are focusing that way, pushing, push, instead of being pulled, that you have a grind, that you have a quota, that I just don't see them going the long haul. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't ever see me stopping. I still pop out of bed, y'all. Still pop out of bed. So, you know, a great example of that is, so we're in January, February, right? Which is the height of the seed starting season. I mean, I start seeds 11 months out of the year. That's one of the great mysteries kept in the dark from people. You can start seeds, you just have to start the right seeds, right, at the right time. So this is a time that, y'all believe this, so this is the time that I know that people are struggling all over the world starting seeds and killing seeds because they are just don't have the right, clear, simple instruction, right? You know, I'm saying this laughing to myself because there are people killing seeds everywhere by no fault of their own. Those people that reach out and that are looking for help are endless in my view, the way that I look out there and see. And I feel this pull to reach out and help them, to get some clarity, because I can. You know, I see their struggle clearer than anybody else does. Isn't it like, who better to help you than the person that has walked in the shoes before you, right? That's why I do so many lives, y'all, this time of year. And it's not that I'm driven to create more customers for our online stores. It is that I want to reach more people and open the door to what it could be. And I guess I just have to really give a great big shout out right now. First off, our team who is so on the same page with me, that is willing to go along with my harebrained ideas. And then to the man that I'm married to. You know, he is my biggest cheerleader. And he sees the results of the people, of the constant people that we've helped. He meets them. And all of that coming together is what makes all of this just so very, very possible. So what about this gardenersworkshop.com, the big engine that I've built? So I didn't build this big engine because I wanted to have a big e-commerce business. I did it because that big engine is what makes all this teaching possible. Does that make sense? It's like that big engine, you know, I couldn't do what I'm doing without the team that I have. Team of almost 20 people, y'all. To create all the content, to create all the resources, to curate what's in our online store. Do you have any idea? I didn't. What all that takes? How many people to make all that possible? Curating the same seeds, tools, and supplies that I use, making it available to you. So when you learn what I'm doing and how simple it is, you can just turn around and get what it is that I use to do it with, right? We have to generate income to keep that big engine running so that I can keep teaching. It is that simple. Honestly, the engine, that big gardenersworkshop.com, has taken the second seat in our mission. But without that second seat, the first seat can't exist. We wouldn't be able to help others to find their way to growing a flower garden and to start and build flower farms. So for me, all that I'm doing requires no push, no grind whatsoever. I don't have to push myself to go out the back door, you know, at 8 o'clock in the evening and walk across the yard to the studio to do another live or to make more content or to write another book. I am pulled by this deep desire in me that started in my heart. And that all started from the experience of my childhood. And that's where it starts for everybody, from your heart, right? If I would have followed what my head, the brain, was telling me to do or not to do, not all the time, but some of the times they align, but not all the time. And oftentimes the thing that my brain is telling me you can't to not do, it's because people think it's impossible, that we won't be doing this. And friends, that is the very thing that I say, why can't we do that? And that's the dyslexic characteristic overriding and saying, no, forget that that our parachute might not open when we jump off the cliff. It's knowing that most often you don't ever have to pull the cord. You don't often ever need to be rescued. It's just that nobody else jumps. That's the moral to that story, right? You have a parachute, and yes, there's a slim chance that when you pull the cord, the chute doesn't open, but I am here to tell you that most often when you jump, you don't have to pull the cord. All right, so I believe that every single person is pulled to something. We just have to open our hearts, open our ears, and ignore all the outside noise. People, hear me on this. And I'm still doing this today. Don't even give a darn what other people think. It doesn't matter. They aren't paying your bills. They aren't in your day-to-day. Don't even think about it. And I mean, I still have times that I think, oh, but what if so-and-so sees this? What are they going to think? Let it go, y'all. Let it go. Let it go. Ignore it and push to do it. Whatever it is, whatever your pull is, I don't want to use the word push, keep just going after it until the cows come home. And we know the cows never come home, which means you're just going to keep on pulling and pulling and pulling. You know, educating on the simplicity of cut flower growing is what I'm pulled to. I'm pulled to help people to learn, that they can grow flowers if that's what you choose to do. My job, or my pull, if you want to think of it that way, is to help them find it, to equip them, and to guide them, and then to support them. You know, to show that the options are there. Here they are. I'm going to open the door. All you have to do is to walk through. And then I'm going to stand back and let people go at it. And that's what drives us to constantly be creating more and more resources. The most recent resource, the big calendar journal, y'all. You know, that big calendar journal is what made me into the most amazing, clear-cut succession grower. It just made it so simple and easy. Now, that calendar may not be for everybody. I've already been told by one person, why don't you just use a spreadsheet? Somebody that reached out to me. It's like, well, we have used spreadsheets. This is a whole different tool. This is for people that are like me, that want to have a visual hanging up that tells me exactly what to do and when to do it during the season when I'm hot and exhausted and tired, right? And then I can sit down and review it during the winter, and that'll help me plan the next year. Different strokes for different folks, y'all. That's what keeps us driving and creating different types of content and resources, because not everybody clicks with every single one. You know, and you may have heard me sign off on lives or to mention it during lives in my podcast, and I'm going to sign off today with it. And I think now maybe you might understand that this is absolutely the truth, that everything we do at the Gardener's Workshop, we do for you. And this little narrative ramble that I've just taken you through tells you why. So friends, till we meet again, ciao.